The council chamber floated in the void between stars, a massive structure built by civilizations far older than most species could remember. Inside, representatives from 200 worlds sat in their designated spaces, their forms as varied as the galaxies themselves. Some breathed oxygen, others methane. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few were made of living crystal that hummed with thought. Ambassador Telvin of the Velhari stood in the center speaking platform, his forearms trembling. His people were herbivores, tall and thin, with green skin that could photosynthesize starlight. Right now, that skin had turned a sickly gray color that meant fear and desperation. "Please," Telvin said, his voice breaking. "My people are dying. 3 of our 7 colony worlds have gone silent. The Kresh Dominion burns our fields, destroys our water systems, and kills anyone who resists. We have 14 billion refugees with nowhere to go. Our hospitals are overwhelmed. Disease is spreading through the camps. We need medical supplies, evacuation ships, food processors, anything you can spare." The council chamber remained quiet. Too quiet. Representative Korax of the Brintil Collective spoke first. His species looked like enormous beetles with too many legs. "The non-interference treaty is clear. The Kresh conflict is a regional dispute. We cannot intervene." "Regional dispute?" Telvin's voice rose to a shout. "They are committing genocide. How many of my people must die before it becomes the galaxy's problem?" "We sympathize with your situation," said Counselor Vreen, a floating jellyfish-like being who spoke through translation devices. "But if we intervene in every conflict, we become the arbiters of all disputes. Where would it end?" "Andister, where would it end?" "Andister, it would end with my people alive." Telvin slammed his hands on the platform. "Is that not enough?" The debate continued for hours. Some species argued for sending observers. Others suggested economic sanctions against the Kresh, which everyone knew meant nothing. A few offered small amounts of aid, enough to ease their conscience but nowhere near enough to matter. Telvin watched his people's only hope slip away in procedural discussions and political maneuvering. The Galactic Council was good at talking. They had been talking for 10,000 years. But when it came to action, they were paralyzed by their own rules. Finally, the session ended with the usual result. A subcommittee would be formed. Reports would be filed. The matter would be studied. His people would die while the galaxy's bureaucrats made schedules for meetings about their deaths. Telvin left the chamber and returned to his small diplomatic ship. "The Kresh attacked the refugee convoy heading to the 6th world," Yaris said quietly. 20 million dead. They didn't even bother to board the ships, just destroyed them from orbit. Telvin sat down heavily. His people had been farmers and artists before the Kresh came. They built beautiful gardens and sang songs to help their crops grow. They had no weapons, no military, no concept of organized violence. The Galactic Council had promised them protection when they joined. That promise was worthless. "What about the new members?" Yaris asked. "The humans? I heard they have advanced medical technology. Something called hospitals and doctors. Maybe they would help where others won't." Telvin had barely paid attention to humanity during their admission ceremony. They were from some death world on the outer rim, newcomers who had just discovered faster-than-light travel 3 cycles ago. What could such a young species offer? But he had no other options. "Send them our distress call," Telvin said. "All of it. The death tolls, the refugee counts, the disease statistics. Make it clear we need medical aid, evacuation support, anything they can spare. If they have even a few hospital ships, it might buy us time." Yaris worked at her console, translating their plea into the human languages. Telvin looked at the data about Earth and its people. They came from a world with high gravity, dangerous weather, and predators that could kill them easily. Yet somehow they had survived, and reached the stars. The file mentioned that humans had something called the Red Cross and Doctors Without Borders, organizations that went into disaster zones to help people. That sounded promising. It also mentioned humans had fought many wars against themselves, but Telvin dismissed that. Every species had a violent past before they learned better. He recorded a personal message to add to the distress call. People of Earth, I am Ambassador Telvin of the Velhari. My civilization is dying. The Kresh Dominion is destroying our worlds, and the Galactic Council refuses to act. We are a peaceful people with no weapons and no warriors. We have 14 billion refugees who need food, medicine, and shelter. Millions are sick. More die every day. We ask for your help as one civilized species to another. Any medical aid you can provide will save lives. Any ships you can send will give our people hope. We do not ask you to fight our war. We only ask you to help us survive it. Please, if you have any compassion in your hearts, help us. Telvin sent the message and waited. Earth was 20 light-years away. Even with quantum communications, it would take time for them to receive it, discuss it, and respond. Time his people didn't have. 3 days later, a response arrived. Telvin read it with Yaris standing beside him. The message was short and direct, very different from the flowery diplomatic language most species used. Ambassador Telvin, we have received your distress call. The United Earth government is preparing a humanitarian response. Relief ships will arrive in your space within 10 days. Admiral Chen will command the operation. Hold on. Help is coming. Signed, Secretary General Martinez, United Earth Government. 10 days. It was faster than Telvin had dared hope. He immediately sent the good news to the Velhari homeworld. For the first time in months, his people had something to celebrate. The humans were sending help. The Velhari prepared to receive the relief convoy. They cleared docking space at their largest remaining orbital station. Medical facilities were set up to receive supplies and coordinate with the human doctors. Lists were made of the most critical needs: antibiotics, surgical equipment, water purification systems, food supplements compatible with Velhari biology. Telvin returned to the council chamber to inform them of Earth's response. Most representatives seemed relieved someone else was handling the problem. A few species who knew more about humans than Telvin did exchanged worried glances, but they said nothing. On the 10th day, Telvin stood at the observation deck of the orbital station, waiting for the human ships to arrive. Hundreds of Velhari had gathered with him, all desperate to see their salvation arrive. They expected a small fleet of white hospital ships with red crosses on their hulls, the symbol they had learned meant human medical aid. The first ships began dropping out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. Telvin's aide worked at her scanner, counting them as they arrived. 10 ships, Yaris said. 20. The humans sent more than we hoped, Telvin said, relief washing over him. How generous. Then the ships came close enough for their sensors to identify them properly. Yaris's hands froze over her console. Her skin turned the color of ice. Sir, she whispered, those aren't hospital ships. Those are warships. The humans sent their military. Telvin stared at the scanner displays in disbelief. Massive carriers that could hold hundreds of smaller craft. Destroyers bristling with weapons. Ships designed for only one purpose: war. The relief he had felt moments ago turned to cold horror. What had he done? He had asked for doctors and received soldiers. He had begged for medicine and received guns. His people had survived the Kresh so far by being beneath notice, by having nothing worth fighting over. Now he had invited humanity, a species of death-world predators, to their worlds. And everyone knew what predators did when they arrived. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UESS Indomitable, watching the Velhari system grow closer on the main display. Around her flagship, The Third Fleet maintained perfect formation. 12 carriers, 40 destroyers, 8 marine assault ships, supply vessels, and yes, tucked among them, 5 hospital ships with their distinctive red crosses. All ships report ready status, Commander Park announced from the tactical station. The Velhari station is hailing us. They sound confused. Chen allowed herself a small smile. I imagine they are. Put them through. The view screen changed to show Ambassador Telvin. The alien's green skin had turned an unhealthy gray color, and his 4 arms moved nervously. Behind him, other Velhari were clearly panicking. Admiral Chen, there appears to be a mistake. We requested medical assistance, not a military fleet. We did not ask you to fight the Kresh. We have no resources to pay for mercenaries. Please. We only need doctors and supplies. Chen kept her voice calm and professional. Ambassador, we are not mercenaries. Earth does not charge for humanitarian operations. And there is no mistake. You asked for help. We are providing it. But you brought warships. We asked for medicine, for evacuation ships, for... Ambassador, Chen interrupted gently. If someone is dying from an infection, what is the first thing a doctor does? Telvin looked confused by the question. I suppose they identify the infection, and then they treat the symptoms and... No, Chen said. First, they eliminate the source of the infection. Everything else is just managing symptoms. The Kresh are the infection killing your people. We are the cure. Telvin's eyes grew wide. You cannot attack the Kresh. They are a recognized government. The Galactic Council will do nothing, Chen finished. They made that clear when they refused your plea. You came to Earth because no one else would help. We are helping. Now, I have 5 hospital ships full of doctors, nurses, and medical supplies. They will begin relief operations immediately. Simultaneously, the Third Fleet will engage and eliminate the Kresh military forces in your space. This is non-negotiable. Chen watched Telvin struggle with the situation. The ambassador had asked for help from what he assumed was a civilized, peaceful species. Instead, he got something that scared him more than the Kresh. How many people will die if we fight? Telvin asked quietly. Kresh? Chen asked. Thousands, probably. Your people? None, if we do our job right. The hospital ships will treat your wounded. The combat fleet will ensure no more wounded are created. This is how humanity does humanitarian work, Ambassador. We stop the problem. Before Telvin could respond, alarms blared on both bridges. Commander Park's voice was sharp. Contact! Kresh battle group dropping out of FTL. Looks like they were coming to hit the station. 12 warships, heavy class. Chen switched the view screen back to the tactical display. The Kresh ships were massive, with thick armor and weapons designed to bombard planets. They had been doing exactly that to Velhari colonies for months. This is Warlord Krenks of the Kresh Dominion, a harsh voice announced over open channels. The Velhari station and all ships are now property of the Kresh. Surrender immediately or be destroyed. Chen noticed the Kresh hadn't even scanned the human fleet properly. They had grown arrogant from months of facing no resistance. That arrogance was about to cost them everything. Red alert, Chen ordered. All ships, weapons free. Let's show these bullies what real warriors look like. The Third Fleet moved with precision that shocked the watching Velhari. Human ships accelerated hard, using their higher thrust-to-weight ratio to position themselves in seconds. Fighters launched from carrier bays, hundreds of small craft that moved like schools of fish. The Kresh finally realized something was wrong. Their ships began charging weapons and raising shields. Too slow. The human destroyers fired first. Railguns accelerated tungsten slugs to a fraction of light speed. The projectiles had no engines, no heat signature, and were nearly impossible to intercept. They struck Kresh shields like hammers against glass. 3 Kresh ships lost shields in the first volley. The second volley punched through their armor. The third volley found their reactors. 3 capital ships died in 15 seconds. Target 9 is launching missiles, Park reported. 400 inbound projectiles. Chen nodded. Point defense, fire. The human ship's automated defense systems engaged. Lasers and small railguns tracked the Kresh missiles with computer precision. The missiles were fast and numerous, but they flew in predictable patterns. 90% died before getting close. The rest hit shields that barely registered the impacts. Human missiles fired in return. Unlike Kresh weapons, these had adaptive AI. They jinked and weaved, learning from each point defense shot. When the Kresh tried to intercept them, the missiles split into multiple warheads. When the Kresh tried to jam them, they switched to visual tracking. When the Kresh tried to hide behind debris, the missiles went around. 6 more Kresh ships exploded. The 3 remaining Kresh vessels tried to run. Their commanders had finally understood they weren't facing farmers anymore. They were facing something far worse. Fighters, intercept, Chen ordered. No one leaves. Human fighters caught the fleeing ships easily. They were smaller, faster, and their pilots had trained their entire lives for this. The fighters didn't just shoot the Kresh ships. They disabled their engines, then their weapons, then their communications. Admiral, the remaining Kresh ships are dead in space, Park reported. They're broadcasting surrender. Chen considered this. The Kresh had shown no mercy to the Velhari. They had targeted refugee ships and civilian stations. They had killed billions. Part of her wanted to finish them. But that wasn't the mission. Broadcast to the Kresh survivors, Chen said. You have one chance. Provide coordinates for all Kresh forces in Velhari space. Every ship, every base, every outpost. You have 10 minutes. If we detect any lies, we resume fire. The Kresh commander appeared on screen. He looked like a bipedal lizard, covered in scars and military decorations. Right now, those scars and medals meant nothing. He was terrified. You dare threaten the Kresh Dominion? We are the dominant military power in this sector. When our main fleet arrives, Chen cut him off. Your main fleet is 3 weeks away. We know because we hacked your communications network 4 minutes ago. We know everything about your deployment, your resources, and your capabilities. You have 9 minutes. 3. The Kresh commander's jaw dropped. Hacking secure military networks during active combat was supposed to be impossible. The Kresh had spent fortunes on their encryption. How did you... 8 minutes. The Kresh sent the data. Chen reviewed it quickly. 47 ships, in total, across the Velhari system. 3 major bases on occupied worlds. Hundreds of smaller installations. It was an occupation force designed to crush a species with no military. Against Earth's 3rd Fleet, it was target practice. Commander Park, coordinate with the other carriers. I want strike packages on every Kresh position within 6 hours. Use overwhelming force. I want this finished before dinner. Yes, Admiral. Chen opened a channel to the hospital ships. Dr. Okafor, you're clear to begin operations. The shooting gallery is moving away from the station. Thank you, Admiral, the doctor replied. We have medical teams ready to deploy. Some of these refugees are in critical condition. Save them, Doctor. That's why we're here. Chen switched back to Ambassador Telvin. The Velhari was staring at his tactical display in shock. The entire battle had lasted less than 4 minutes. Ambassador, my hospital ships are ready to receive your wounded. We have supplies for 14 billion refugees, and more are coming from Earth. Our Marines will provide security for the relief operations. And within the next day, there will be no more Kresh in your space. Is this acceptable? Telvin took a long time to answer. When he did, his voice shook. You asked for medical assistance, and you brought war. No, Chen corrected. You were already at war. You were just losing. We brought victory. The medicine comes after. Chen watched the ambassador process this. The Velhari had thought humans would be like them. Peaceful, cautious, bound by rules and procedures. They had no context for a species that treated violence as just another tool. Something to be applied with precision when needed. Are all humans like you? Telvin asked. Chen smiled. No, Ambassador. Most humans are farmers, teachers, artists. Just like your people. But when something threatens innocent lives, we remember that we came from a world that tried to kill us every day. We learned to fight back, and we got very, very good at it. The first human medical shuttles launched toward the Velhari station, carrying hope in the form of doctors and medicine. Behind them, the Third Fleet moved out, hunting the remaining Kresh forces. The Velhari had asked for help. Earth had answered. Just not in the way anyone expected. Supreme Commander Varkesh stood in the command center of the Kresh forward base on Velhari 4, reviewing reports of the latest conquest. The agricultural world's population had been reduced by 60%. The survivors worked in the fields under guard, growing food for Kresh soldiers. It was efficient. It was proper. The strong ruled the weak, as nature intended. Supreme Commander, his communications officer said nervously, the patrol fleet at the Velhari homeworld has stopped transmitting. Varkesh barely looked up. Equipment failure? Unknown, sir. They reported engaging unknown ships, then nothing. Send another patrol to investigate. Probably just another council species making noise. None of them have the spine to actually fight. That had been the Kresh's experience for 200 years. The galaxy was full of civilizations that talked about justice and peace, but did nothing when faced with real power. The Galactic Council was worthless. They would debate and argue while the Kresh took whatever they wanted. 2 hours later, more reports arrived. Not just the patrol fleet. All Kresh forces in the outer system had gone silent. Varkesh finally paid attention. All of them? Yes, Supreme Commander. 47 ships, 12 installations, all communication ceased within the last 6 hours. That's impossible. Show me the sensor logs. The displays showed nothing. The sensors that watched the outer system had been destroyed first, blinded before they could report what was destroying them. It was professional work. Military work. Raise shields, Varkesh ordered. Battle stations. Alert all ground forces. The base came alive with activity. Kresh warriors rushed to their positions, ready to defend against whatever had destroyed their fleet. They were elite soldiers, veterans of dozens of conquests. They feared nothing. That was their first mistake. The attack came from orbit without warning. Not the bombardment lasers or plasma weapons the Kresh were familiar with. These were kinetic strikes, telephone pole-sized tungsten rods dropped from orbit at incredible speeds. They hit the base's shield generators like the fist of an angry god. The generators overloaded in seconds. The base's main shield collapsed. Return fire, Varkesh shouted. Target those ships. The base's defensive weapons tried to acquire targets, but the human ships moved too fast and changed position constantly. When the Kresh weapons did lock on, human point defense shot down the incoming fire effortlessly. More kinetic strikes rained down. The base's command center shook. Walls cracked. The lights flickered. They're targeting our weapons, the tactical officer reported. Every shot is hitting exactly where. The ceiling collapsed on him. Varkesh crawled from the rubble, blood streaming from a cut on his head. Around him, his command center was destroyed. Half his staff was dead. The other half was wounded or fleeing. Ground assault incoming, someone screamed. They're landing troops. The human Marines hit the base like a natural disaster. They didn't land in the safe zones outside defensive fire like civilized warriors. They dropped directly on top of the base, using single-man pods that punched through walls and floors. One moment, the Kresh were defending prepared positions. The next, human soldiers were behind them, beside them, everywhere at once. Varkesh rallied what forces he could and tried to organize a defense. The Kresh were larger and stronger than humans. They had better armor and stronger weapons. They should have crushed the invaders in close combat. They died instead. The humans fought with a precision and brutality that shocked the Kresh. They used their own dead as cover. They threw grenades into rooms before checking if anyone was inside. They shot wounded Kresh without hesitation. There was no honor in their fighting. No glory. Just cold, efficient killing. "They're not giving us a chance to surrender," a warrior screamed before a human shot him. Because that was the second mistake. The Kresh assumed humans would follow the normal rules of warfare. Challenge and response. Honor and surrender. The old ways that every species agreed to. Humans had different rules. When the Kresh tried to surrender, the humans ignored them and kept shooting. When Kresh officers tried to negotiate, the humans shot them first. When the Kresh tried to retreat to regroup, the humans hunted them down. It took Varkesh too long to understand. These weren't soldiers. They were exterminators. And the Kresh were the pests being eliminated. He tried to reach the communication center to call for help from the main fleet. He found it already captured. Human soldiers stood guard, while one of their officers spoke into a transmitter in fluent Kresh language. "This is Captain Rodriguez of the United Earth Marine Corps. To all Kresh forces in this system, your bases are destroyed. Your ships are destroyed. Your supreme commander is about to be destroyed. You have one option: immediate and unconditional surrender. You have 30 minutes. After that, we stop taking prisoners." Varkesh stepped into the room, his weapon raised. "Surrender? The Kresh do not surrender to prey species." 3 human soldiers shot him before he could finish the sentence. They didn't hesitate. Didn't give him a chance to attack. Didn't care about his rank or authority. They simply eliminated the threat. Varkesh fell, his blood pooling on the floor. As his vision faded, he heard Captain Rodriguez continue speaking. 29 minutes remaining. Across the Velhari system, the same scene played out. Kresh ships that tried to fight were destroyed with casual efficiency. Bases that tried to hold were overwhelmed by troops that didn't care about their own safety, only mission completion. Officers who tried to rally their forces were targeted first by human snipers, shooting from impossible distances. The Kresh had spent 2 centuries building their reputation as unstoppable conquerors. Humans destroyed that reputation in less than a day. On the Kresh dreadnought Unstoppable Will, Admiral Krenks received reports from across the system, every base reporting attacks, every patrol destroyed, every defensive position overrun. He had started the day with over 10,000 Kresh warriors in the Velhari system. Now fewer than 3,000 remained, and those were surrendering as fast as they could. "How is this possible?" Krenix asked his staff. "How can one species be so effective?" His intelligence officer had been studying captured human communications. "Admiral, I think I understand. The humans have been fighting wars since before they discovered fire. Their entire history is warfare. They fought each other for thousands of years, developing increasingly deadly weapons and tactics. They nearly destroyed their own world multiple times. Then how did they survive? They learned. They took all that experience in killing and turned it into a science. War isn't something special to them. It's just another problem to solve. And they're very good at solving problems." Krenks looked at the tactical display. The human fleet was in perfect position to intercept his ship if he tried to run. They had outplayed him completely. "Send a message to the human commander. We surrender." All Kresh forces in this system surrender. The response came immediately from Admiral Chen. Surrender accepted. All Kresh personnel will be processed as prisoners of war and turned over to the Velhari for trial. Your weapons will be confiscated. Your ships will be impounded. Your bases will be dismantled. You have two choices. Comply immediately, or we resume operations. What guarantee do we have of fair treatment? Krang's asked. You have my word, Chen replied. Humans follow the laws of war. We don't torture prisoners. We don't execute surrendered enemies. We treat them according to the rules we agreed to. But understand this. Those rules only apply once you surrender. While you're still fighting, you're just targets. Krang gave the order. Kresh forces across the system laid down their weapons. Human Marines took them into custody with the same efficiency they had shown in combat. No gloating. No victory celebrations. Just professional soldiers doing their job. On Velhari 4, the surviving Kresh were loaded into shuttles under heavy guard. The Velhari civilians who had been enslaved watched in stunned silence as their tormentors were marched away in chains. Some cried. Others cheered. A few couldn't believe it was over. One elderly Velhari farmer approached a human Marine who stood guard. You fight so well, the farmer said. Have your people always been warriors? The Marine, a young woman who looked barely old enough to be a soldier, smiled tiredly. No, sir. My family are farmers too. We grow corn in Iowa. But sometimes farmers need to protect their fields from predators. That's all we're doing here. The farmer looked at the captured Kresh, then back at the Marine. Those predators will remember this. They will fear you now. Good, the Marine replied. Fear keeps predators away. That's the whole point. Within 48 hours of entering the system, the Third Fleet had eliminated every Kresh military presence. Not a single human soldier had been killed. 3 had been wounded. The Kresh had lost over 8,000 warriors and every ship they had in the sector. The news spread through Kresh space faster than light travel. The Dominion had encountered something they had never faced before. A species more dangerous than themselves. Their expansion stopped immediately. Their fleets pulled back to defend core territories. Their commanders studied every second of footage from the battle, trying to understand what had happened. But there was no mystery. The Kresh had simply learned what the rest of Earth's history had taught humanity long ago. There is always something stronger, faster, and more dangerous. The only way to survive is to become better at surviving than anything that wants to kill you. Humans had spent millions of years learning that lesson. The Kresh had learned it in 2 days. The education was brutal, but complete. The demons from Earth were real. And they were very, very good at their job. The Galactic Council emergency session was the most heavily attended meeting in 300 years. Every species sent representatives. Even civilizations that usually ignored council business made sure they had someone present. The reason was simple. Everyone wanted to understand what humanity had done and what it meant for them. Everyone. Councillor Vreen called the session to order, their jellyfish-like body pulsing with agitation. We are here to discuss the human intervention in the Velhari Kresh conflict. Ambassador Rodriguez, you will explain Earth's actions. Maria Rodriguez stood and walked to the central platform. She had been a prosecutor before joining the diplomatic corps, and it showed. She didn't look nervous or apologetic. She looked like someone about to present evidence to a jury. The facts are simple, Rodriguez began. The Velhari requested humanitarian assistance. Earth provided it. 5 hospital ships, 7,000 medical personnel, and enough supplies to care for 14 billion refugees. We also eliminated the military threat that was creating those refugees. Mission accomplished. You started a war. Representative Korak slammed his many legs against his platform. You attacked a recognized government without council approval. We didn't start anything. Rodriguez replied calmly. The Kresh were already at war with the Velhari. We ended it. And we didn't need council approval for a humanitarian mission. Check your own rules. Any member species can provide aid to another species that requests it. That rule refers to food, medicine, shelter, said Counselor Thren, a being made of living crystal. Not military intervention. The rule says aid as needed to ensure survival, Rodriguez quoted. The Velhari were dying. Medicine alone wouldn't save them, while the Kresh kept killing them. We provided the aid needed. All of it. Ambassador Telvin stood in his section, his green skin still showing stress colors. I must speak. I was the one who requested help from Earth. I asked for medical aid because I thought that was all humans could provide. I was wrong. They provided what we actually needed, not just what we asked for. My people are alive because of them. Your people are alive because Earth decided to play military enforcer, Korak snapped. Today it's the Kresh. Tomorrow it could be any of us who displease them. Are you planning to commit genocide? Rodriguez asked sweetly. Because that's what it takes to get on our bad side. We only intervene when civilians are being massacred. If you're not planning to massacre civilians, you have nothing to worry about. The chamber erupted in dozens of arguments. Some species were horrified by human military efficiency. Others were secretly relieved someone had finally dealt with the Kresh. A few were calculating how they could use this to their advantage. In the Xelian delegation, Ambassador Torvin whispered to his aide, "The humans did in 2 days what would have taken us years of diplomacy, and they did it without losing a single soldier." "They're dangerous," the aide replied. "They're effective," Torvin corrected. "There's a difference. Get me everything you can find about Earth's military capabilities. The Kresh have been raiding our mining colonies for years. If humans can stop them." Anyway. He left the thought unfinished, but his aide understood. A dozen other species were having the same conversation. In the Brintil Collective's secure chamber, military analysts were reviewing the battle footage over and over. General Kraxus couldn't believe what he was seeing. They coordinated 12 carriers, 40 destroyers, and hundreds of fighters with perfect precision, Kraxus said. No communication lag, no confusion. Just flawless execution. How? Advanced AI, his intelligence officer suggested. Or neural linking. Or some technology. We don't understand. No. Kraxus said slowly. I've seen this before. In nature, watch how predators hunt in packs. Each one knows exactly what the others will do because they've practiced it thousands of times. That's what we're seeing. These humans train for war constantly. But they claim to be peaceful. They are peaceful, Kraxus said. Right up until you threaten something they care about. Then they remember they're apex predators. We need to make very sure we never threaten anything humans care about. The council session continued for hours. Proposal after proposal was raised to censure Earth, to limit their military, to force them to follow stricter guidelines. Every proposal failed. Some species voted against them out of principle. Others voted against them because they wanted human help for their own problems. Finally, Ambassador Yell of the Corinthian League stood. His species were traders who dealt with everyone, maintaining strict neutrality. When they spoke, people listened. I have reviewed the humans' actions carefully, Yell said. They committed no violations of council law. The Velhari requested aid. Earth provided it. Yes, their methods are more aggressive than we're comfortable with. But their results are undeniable. The Velhari genocide has stopped. 14 billion refugees are receiving care. And it cost the council nothing. It cost the Kresh 8,000 warriors. Someone shouted. The Kresh chose to fight rather than withdraw, Yell replied. They could have left Velhari space when the human fleet arrived. They chose combat. That was their decision. And speaking as someone who has studied human history, picking a fight with humans is always a bad decision. Are you defending them? Korax demanded. I'm stating facts, Yell said. Humans are the most militarily capable species we've encountered in 1,000 years. They're also the only species that has actually helped a member in crisis recently. We can choose to see them as a threat, or we can choose to see them as an asset. I know which option serves the Council better. In the human delegation's private chamber, Rodriguez and her staff monitored the debate. Military Liaison Colonel Patterson looked worried. They're scared of us, Patterson said. They should be scared, Rodriguez replied. Not of what we'll do to them, but of what we'll do to anyone who threatens innocence. That's the whole point. We're establishing deterrence. Some of them are going to test us. Let them. As long as they test us by attacking someone who needs help, we'll be happy to demonstrate our capabilities again. Rodriguez's tablet blinked with an urgent message. She read it and smiled. Interesting. We're receiving humanitarian requests from 37 different species. They all seem to have aggressive neighbors who are causing problems. Are they actual humanitarian crises? Patterson asked. Some are. Some are just territorial disputes. We'll need to sort through them carefully. We're not going to be the Council's attack dog, but we will help legitimate cases. Back in the main chamber, the vote was finally called. The motion to censure Earth failed by a wide margin. The motion to restrict human military operations failed. Even the motion to form a committee to study the issue barely passed, and everyone knew committees meant nothing. Earth had won. Not just the battle in Velhari space, but the political battle in the Council. They had proven they could act decisively when needed, and they had shown the Council's rules actually supported their actions. Councillor Vreen closed the session with clear frustration. The Council accepts Earth's explanation of their actions. However, we strongly encourage more consultation before future operations. Of course, Rodriguez said smoothly. We'll consult with anyone who wants to help. But if no one helps, we'll do what needs to be done. That's what humanitarian aid means to us. As the representatives left the chamber, the conversations continued. Species that had been threatened by aggressive neighbors were quietly contacting Earth's embassy. Others were reviewing their own military doctrines, wondering if they could match human effectiveness. A few were already planning ways to manipulate humans into fighting their wars for them. But the largest group was simply afraid. For 10,000 years, the Galactic Council had maintained order through diplomacy and consensus. War was something that happened in remote systems between primitive species. Civilized species talked their way through problems. Humans had reminded everyone that sometimes talking wasn't enough. Sometimes you needed to bare your teeth and make predators back down. It was an old, primal way of thinking. Most species had evolved past it. Humans hadn't. They had simply gotten very, very good at it. In the Kresh Dominion capital, the Supreme Council met in emergency session. Their military was in disarray. Their expansion had stopped. Their reputation was shattered. All because of one human fleet. We need allies, one counselor suggested. Other species who fear human aggression. Who will ally with us now? Another replied. We look weak. The humans made us look weak in front of the entire galaxy. Then we rebuild. We study human tactics. We develop countermeasures. And we remember this humiliation. Someday, we will face humanity again. No, the Supreme Leader said quietly. We will not. We will avoid human space. We will never threaten species under their protection. We learned what the humans wanted us to learn. There are consequences for genocide. We never faced those consequences before. Now we have. You're saying we should fear them? I'm saying we should respect them. And respecting a predator means staying out of its territory. Humanity has claimed humanitarian protection as their territory. We will not enter it again. CP. ESCOM. It was a profound shift. The Kresh had spent 2 centuries conquering weaker species. Now they were backing down, not because of military defeat, but because of what that defeat represented. Humans were a line that should not be crossed. The news of Earth's victory and the Council's non-response spread across the galaxy. Species in danger started sending desperate messages to Earth. Aggressive empires quietly backed away from planned invasions. Pirates avoided ships that might have Earth connections. A new rule emerged in galactic affairs, unwritten but universally understood. If you hurt civilians badly enough that someone calls for humanitarian aid, Earth will come. And when Earth comes, it brings medicine in one hand and a gun in the other. The galaxy had learned to live with many rules over its long history. This was just one more. But it was one that would change everything. Ambassador Maria Rodriguez walked to the central platform of the Galactic Council with a data tablet in her hand and confidence in her stride. The chamber was packed again. Everyone wanted to hear Earth's formal statement on humanitarian intervention. What they heard would reshape galactic politics for centuries. Members of the Galactic Council, Rodriguez began, Earth has reviewed the concerns raised about our intervention in Velhari space. We have consulted with our government, our military, and our people. We have reached a decision about how humanity will approach humanitarian crises going forward. The chamber was absolutely silent. Every species leaned forward, waiting. The Velhari asked for medical aid, Rodriguez continued. They were specific. They wanted doctors, medicine, and supplies. But they were dying not from disease, but from genocide. Medical aid alone would have been a bandage on a bullet wound. It would have eased their suffering while they died. That is not aid. That is witnessing a murder and handing the victim a tissue. She paused, letting that image sink in. Earth defines humanitarian aid differently. When someone asks for help, we don't just treat symptoms. We eliminate causes. The Kresh were the cause of Velhari suffering. Therefore, removing the Kresh was part of the medical treatment. You're comparing military action to medicine? Counselor Thren asked. I'm stating a fact, Rodriguez replied. Medicine isn't always gentle. Sometimes doctors cut into people to save them. Sometimes they use powerful drugs that are almost poison. Sometimes treatment hurts more than the disease. But the goal is always survival. Earth's goal in Velhari space was Velhari survival. We achieved that goal. Representative Korak stood angrily. You can't simply redefine humanitarian aid to include warfare. We're not redefining anything, Rodriguez said. We're clarifying what we mean when we say we'll help. And since there seems to be confusion, let me be absolutely clear about Earth's position going forward. She activated her tablet. A document appeared on every screen in the chamber. It was formatted like a treaty, with official seals and legal language. But it wasn't a treaty. It was a declaration. This is the Human Humanitarian Doctrine, Rodriguez announced. It defines how Earth will respond to requests for aid. I'll summarize the key points. First, any species may request humanitarian assistance from Earth. We will evaluate each request based on need, not politics. We don't care if you're council members or not, powerful or weak, popular or isolated. If you're suffering and ask for help, we'll listen. Several smaller species who had been ignored by the council for years sat up straighter. This was new. This was hope. Second, we will determine what aid is needed. You may ask for food, and we might send it. You may ask for medicine, and we might send it. You may ask for protection, and we might send soldiers. Or we might send all three. We will provide what we believe will actually solve the problem, not just what you think you need. That's extremely arrogant, someone shouted. It's extremely effective, Rodriguez countered. The Velhari asked for what they thought would help. We gave them what actually helped. They're alive. That's the only metric that matters. Third, we will engage in military action if necessary to protect civilian populations from active threats. This includes genocide, mass enslavement, planetary bombardment, or any other actions designed to destroy a civilian population. We will use overwhelming force. We will not negotiate with aggressors. We will eliminate the threat. The chamber erupted in protests. Rodriguez waited calmly for them to quiet down. Fourth, we will follow the laws of war. Prisoners will be treated humanely. Civilians will not be targeted. Proportional force will be used. But understand this. We define proportional differently than you do. To us, proportional means using enough force to guarantee mission success with minimum friendly casualties. If that means destroying an entire fleet to save one hospital ship, we'll do it. You're describing a protection racket, Counselor Vreen said. You're setting yourselves up as the galaxy's enforcers. No, Rodriguez said firmly. We're setting ourselves up as the galaxy's emergency responders. The difference is crucial. We don't demand payment. We don't expand territory. We don't impose governments. We respond to crises, resolve them, and leave. What you do with that piece is up to you. And if we don't want your help, Corax demanded, then don't ask for it, Rodriguez said simply. This doctrine only applies when someone requests aid. We're not going to invade your space and force you to accept help. But if you're committing genocide and someone asks us to stop you... Ambassador Telvin stood. His skin had returned to a healthy green color, and he looked stronger than he had in months. The chair recognizes the Velhari representative, Vreen said reluctantly. I was the one who brought humans into this situation, Telvin said. I take full responsibility. But I want everyone to understand what Earth actually did for my people. They didn't just stop the creche. Their doctors have treated 17 million wounded. Their engineers have restored water systems to 6 colonies. Their supplies are feeding 2 billion refugees. And they did all of this while fighting a war. He turned to look directly at Rodriguez. Ambassador, I was terrified when your warships arrived. I thought I had traded one conqueror for another. I was wrong. You did exactly what you promised. You helped us survive. My people will be grateful forever. We don't need gratitude, Rodriguez said. We need the galaxy to understand we're serious about protecting innocence. If that means some people fear us, so be it. Better they fear us than continue killing civilians. We've noted several species that had been victims of aggression began nodding. They understood what Earth was offering. Protection. Real protection. Not the Council's empty promises and endless debates. Ambassador Yell of the Corinthian League stood. I have a question for Ambassador Rodriguez. Your doctrine says you'll respond to any request for aid. What if multiple species request help simultaneously? What if those requests conflict with each other? Good question, Rodriguez acknowledged. We'll prioritize based on severity. Active genocide ranks higher than resource disputes. Civilian casualties rank higher than military conflicts. We'll also consider whether the requesting species has exhausted other options. If the Council can solve your problem through diplomacy, that's preferable to military action. So, you're not trying to replace the Council? Yell asked. We're trying to supplement it, Rodriguez said. The Council is excellent at many things. Peaceful negotiation, trade agreements, cultural exchange. But crisis response isn't your strength. Too many members, too many procedures, too much time. When someone needs help right now, the Council can't move fast enough. Earth can. We will. That's our role. A new voice spoke from the shadows of the chamber. It was Ambassador Cyrix of the Tarvan hierarchy, one of the oldest and most advanced species in the galaxy. They rarely spoke in council, and when they did, everyone listened. I have studied Earth's history, Cyrix said in their ancient, measured way. Your species has fought countless wars. Killed billions of your own people. Nearly destroyed your world multiple times. Why should we trust you won't do the same to us? Rodriguez had been waiting for this question. Because we learned. Every war taught us something. Every mistake showed us what not to do. By the time we reached the stars, we had spent 10,000 years figuring out how to fight. We know exactly how much violence is needed, how to apply it precisely, and when to stop. That knowledge is why we're effective. You're saying your history of violence makes you trustworthy? I'm saying our history of learning from violence makes us trustworthy. We know what war costs. We know what it destroys. We don't want to fight. But we're willing to, when necessary, and we're good at it when we do. That combination makes us the perfect species for this role. Syrinx was quiet for a long moment. I have lived for 800 years. I have watched countless species rise and fall. I have seen empires that conquered through strength and burned out quickly. I have seen civilizations that preached peace and were destroyed by those willing to use violence. Earth is something different. You're strong enough to fight, but wise enough to know when not to. That combination is rare. Does that mean the Tarvin support our doctrine? Rodriguez asked. It means we will watch closely. If you abuse this power, we will oppose you. But if you truly do what you claim, if you protect the innocent and withdraw when the crisis ends, then you may have found a sustainable path between pacifism and imperialism. The galaxy needs that path. Anyway, the vote was called. The Council couldn't approve the human-humanitarian doctrine because it wasn't a treaty. Earth wasn't asking for permission. They were informing the Council of their policy. But the Council could vote to oppose it, to declare it a violation of galactic law, to demand Earth stop. The vote failed. 37 species abstained, all of whom had aggressive neighbors or recent experience with attacks. 40 species voted against opposition, including the Velhari and several other victims of aggression. Only 23 species voted to oppose Earth's doctrine. Mostly those who had benefited from the old system of talking, while others suffered. Earth's doctrine stood. In the weeks that followed, Earth's embassy was flooded with requests. Some were legitimate, humanitarian crises. Others were barely disguised attempts to manipulate humans into fighting someone's war for them. Earth's diplomatic corps carefully evaluated each one. They helped a mining colony being raided by pirates. They provided disaster relief after a volcanic eruption destroyed 3 cities. They evacuated refugees from a civil war. They stopped a corporate alliance from enslaving an indigenous population. They did not help territorial disputes where both sides had legitimate claims. They did not intervene in purely military conflicts between equals. They did not respond to requests that were obviously attempts at manipulation. The galaxy learned the rules. Earth would help the helpless. Earth would stop atrocities. Earth would protect civilians. But Earth wouldn't be anyone's attack dog. You had to actually need help, not just want someone to fight your battles. 6 months after the Velhari crisis, Ambassador Telvin visited Earth. He wanted to see the world that had saved his people. What he found surprised him. Earth was beautiful but dangerous. Weather that could kill you. Terrain that challenged you. Animals that hunted you. Yet humans had covered it in cities and farms, art and culture. They had tamed a world that tried to kill them. This is why you're so good at fighting, Telvin said, as he stood in a museum displaying Earth's history. You've been fighting since the beginning. With Oslife. Let's the Riven. All. Something Henri. Waif. Wife. Way 5. Henri. Way 5. Not just fighting, his human guide said. Surviving. There's a difference. Fighting is about defeating enemies. Surviving is about making sure something precious continues to exist. When we fight, we're not trying to conquer. We're trying to protect. That's what we did for your people. Telvin looked at exhibits showing human wars, famines, disasters, and triumphs. Humans had faced extinction dozens of times. They had survived through intelligence, cooperation, and willingness to do whatever was necessary. "Will you always help those who ask?" Telvin asked. "We'll always try," the guide said. "We won't always succeed. We can't be everywhere at once. But we'll respond to legitimate requests for help. Because we remember what it's like to need help and not get it. We remember what it's like to watch people die while others debate whether to act. We decided never to be those people." Telvin returned to the Galactic Council with a new understanding. Earth wasn't trying to conquer the galaxy. They were trying to make it safer. Not through laws or diplomacy, but through the simple willingness to stand between predators and prey. The galaxy would never be the same. For the first time in millennia, there was a species willing to enforce consequences for atrocities. Not through sanctions or strongly worded statements, but through direct action. It made some species nervous. It made others hopeful. It made everyone more careful about how they treated their neighbors. The Kresh never raided another colony. Pirates found easier targets than anyone who might call Earth for help. Warlords thought twice before bombarding civilian populations. Slavers looked for species without Earth connections, not because they feared punishment, because they knew punishment would actually come. Earth had done something the Galactic Council never could. They had made consequences real, and in doing so, they had made the galaxy a little bit safer, one humanitarian crisis at a time. In the human embassy on the Council station, Ambassador Rodriguez looked at the latest request for aid. Another species in trouble. Another crisis the Council would debate endlessly. Another opportunity for Earth to do what it did best: help those who needed it most. She approved the mission and sent it to the military. Somewhere, a fleet would begin preparing. Somewhere, doctors would pack their supplies. Somewhere, Marines would check their weapons. And somewhere in the galaxy, innocent people would survive because humanity had decided that humanitarian aid meant actually keeping humans alive, not just making the helpers feel better about watching them die. That was the precedent Earth had set. That was the line they had drawn. And the galaxy was learning that when humans drew a line, they meant it.